Many times we can say much more through nonverbals than through words. Body language can come as a very useful tool when the mouth is not able to properly express what we are really thinking about. Sometimes we're not even aware of the signs or gestures that we make because everything in the nonverbal behavior is expressed unconsciously. It stems from the feelings and emotions wandering through our hearts and minds, and we might even find ourselves, at some point, crying or laughing when the situation does not require it, socially speaking. Everybody uses body language, and the way it impacts our social interactions influences our lives on all social levels. Understood appropriately, it can become a very useful tool that can bring us the gratification that we need in a certain context. Think of politicians who have undoubtedly turned to nonverbal acts when they couldn't find the proper words to express their thoughts and ideas. John Navarro, a former FBI agent, has many times talked about how these people in charge of countries and politics have used body language in their attempt of convincing citizens of their well-intentioned political campaigns. It is all thought in great detail, from the clothes they choose to wear to whether they'll come in front of the crowd smiling or shaking hands with the representative of the opposition. Many people might fall into believing that it all comes natural for a politician to smile like that, or to behave in a certain way. But it all takes many hours of preparation by large teams of experts. In other words, there is a whole army of specialists behind a single political figure that builds a specific image that can reach the hearts of the citizens. So how good are these politicians in their theatrical plays? One of the best moments to notice how well prepared a politician really is are political debates. When two opposite candidates have to face one another in a conversation that is meant to convince people of their good intentions for a future possible, let's say, presidency.
Success is going to bring us together.
I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move.
They are advised to use all their well-prepared techniques, including specific body language strategies. Think of a crowd of people. Could you be able to instantly spot the political candidate? Of course you could, because most politicians, when entering a crowd, they will either wave their hand to someone in the audience or they will point a finger at someone. While some may believe that the candidate in front of them is naturally and wholeheartedly waving at the audience, politicians many times turn to such gestures because they are aware that their photo will be taken by the cameras in the crowd. So it's all a matter of looking good and positive in tomorrow's newspaper. Another crucial detail that must not be ignored when organizing a political debate is that debaters have to sit at approximately 7 feet away from each other so that any height difference is not noticed. Generally, there is this tendency among voters to prefer candidates that have more powerful physical features. By keeping debaters apart, any difference in their appearance is not emphasized, and only the words they speak are in the spotlights. Most of the time, you'll notice that there is a common color that most backgrounds have when a politician is speaking, and that is the color blue. From a psychological point of view, this color is one that is soothing for the human brain. As it has the capacity of evoking a sense of calmness and serenity, politicians' crew use blue as a way to let people know that they can trust the politician in question. Another strategy that is many times used is wearing clothes that have almost the same colors as the country's flag they represent. It can be understood as a way to show their full commitment to the state and their loyalty to dedicating their whole life to creating a developed and sustainable background for the country. This is only a prop they have to use so that they reach the voters' subconscious, hoping that they will get their sympathy and, ultimately, their votes. When talking about gestures, there are a lot of details to keep an eye on. It's important to understand the connection between a politician's past actions and the gestures they now make as candidates in a political debate. In fact, it's a very obvious aspect that can determine us to make up our minds on whether we can give them our vote or not. The body language of a politician can never be seen as a way of figuring out whether they're speaking from a place of truth and honesty, because most of their attitude is part of an orchestrated program they prepared in advance. Instead, what body language can help us better understand is if there is a consistency in the words that we hear from a political figure and the gestures they make. For example, If a politician's promise is to work harder and better on promoting social progress, are his or her gestures supporting these words? If there is any lip biting or too long pauses between words while they're answering a question regarding their promises, then there is a discrepancy that can be noticed. There is actually a sign of him or her not being honest and anchored enough in what the political work is actually all about. Also, it's a discomfort that the politician might feel when asked about a certain sensitive subject.
Do it over the last 25 years.
Because you
Why
weren't
didn't
president.
you do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years?
screwing
No.
things up.
You were a senator.
Other dubious gestures that should be considered are clearing the throat or speaking in the same time with the moderator if we're talking about a debate.
President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He
I
stood up.
These are signs that the candidate is feeling uncomfortable, and that maybe the words he speaks are only part of a script written by other people just to create a certain image. It also shows a deep lack of confidence, and no voter out there wants such a politician running a country, right? Instead, if thumbs come up and their hands are in full view, and there is maybe even steepling, then we can honestly think of that particular candidate as being a good option for our voting. On the other hand, if there's an interlacing of the fingers, then that means there is something that the politician in question is struggling with. Another gesture to consider is a blocking behavior, or a comforting one that has to do with touching the eye or the eyelid. This is mostly done when a person needs to calm down, because when we touch that specific area of our face, we're actually stimulating a nerve that is sending a message to the brain that we need to calm down. In political debates, for instance, if we see such a gesture made by one of the candidates, it means that they either gave a wrong answer to a question or they are not comfortable with the situation they find themselves in. Something else that can give us a clue about the typology of a candidate is the way they react to certain words their opposite tells.
Unless he gets a lot smarter.
Did you use the word smart? Don't ever use the word smart with me.
Think of humor being used by a candidate to emphasize something that their opponent said.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
This clearly shows their authentic self, and it's a good way to see the real face of a politician. It's like the covers are unfolded, and any script or behavior prepared in advance is forgotten, because the real and genuine self comes up front. Humans have been created to easily be influenced by nonverbals, and this is exactly what most politicians use in their political campaigns. Think of the pointing finger that many politicians are using when they're speaking in front of a crowd. There is this visceral reaction that we have because we are created to respond to such a gesture by becoming more alert or more attentive to what the person speaking in front of us has to say. Most of the time, it's a negative reaction that comes as a result of all the teachers that pointed fingers at us during school years for doing something wrong or for being called upon in front of the class. Instead, when politicians want to maintain a positive and optimistic air in their talk, they will choose to point with an open palm, kept vertically. This is something that is not menacing, and we like it because it gives us a sense of comfort and calmness. Some politicians are usually showing off a gesture, where their thumb comes out very little from beyond the index finger, and it feels like they're grasping on something. This shows that what they're talking about is very important, and that you, the voter, should have full confidence in what they're saying, because it comes from deep within their heart. Understanding how body language works can help you a lot in seeing what the individual who is after your vote is actually about.